Well, hi there, and welcome along to bettingexpert.com's Cheltenham Festival preview show, sponsored by Bet365. Throughout the course of this show, we will be going over all the grade ones for the 2023 Cheltenham Festival. The handicaps, well, they'll come on a show next week. Of course, I like to do this in the company of bettingexpert.com's Stephen Harris. Stephen, how are you? Not long now, as you know, I like to say, and as you say, anticipation reaching fever pitch.
Yeah, we're only a week or so away, Ed, aren't we? I know you've been looking out of your window rather nervously, um, worrying what the ground's going to be like. Apparently, there has been a bit of rain up there. Obviously, he's been watering already for the last week or so. So I would think those backers who've lumped on good to soft or good in places have probably got a pretty safe bet with the festival round the corner. But no, it's beginning to all take shape, isn't it? We're starting to know where the big yards are going to fire all their bullets. So let's get stuck in and try and find a few winners.
Yeah, just very quickly on the ground. It was interesting because it has the biggest bearing of all, doesn't it? On many of the ways the horses run. Clark, and of course, John Pullin saying from January the 15th to now, last year they had 58 millimetres of rainfall, only 10 this time around. Incredible lack of rain. This week, you are right, a little bit of drizzle here and there, nothing to note, but 45 millimetres of irrigation has been applied to Cheltenham in order to try and bring us back up to where we were last year, if you remember rightly. The ground pretty much is riding good according to the times by the time they went to post in the champion hurdle. So lots to bear in mind. So there's a good point you do raise, Stephen. We're going to film this on the assumption we're getting the inverted commas spring ground of good to soft or blend of good to soft and good, and we'll go from there. And we'll kick on without further ado with the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Well, it's quite refreshing, the Supreme Novices Hurdle this year, Stephen, in many ways, in that, in my view, it has an incredibly wide open look to it. I was going back through the history of this race. I'd be shocked, personally, I don't know what you think, if we've got another Constitution Hill, an Outie or something of that ilk in here. Obviously, Facile Vega is the horse many people are hoping can make up into that type of animal. I wonder if we've got more of an Ebba Zion type year with a bit of an upset. Either way, we've got a wide open looking market here. Supreme Novice Hurdle, non-random bet market of 5-2 Facile Vega, 7-2 Marine Nationale, and then we're going 4-1 Bar. So I suppose the question for you, Stephen, Facile Vega, a nay or a play at 5-2.
Well, I think it's a terrible, terrible price, and I think I'll be bang
Right.
against him, win and place. I mean, I think he's one of those
Wow.
horses who looked, potentially he's going to be a real superstar after the bumper last year. Always been held in the highest regard, but that run last time out really did ring alarm bells. I know there's been a story backfitted to explain the disappointment. I thought at the time that Facile Vega had probably either choked or burst, but it turns out he did finish lame. He was lame for a week after the race. I mean, Willie Mullins was silently seething, wasn't he, after that race? He thought Townend had gone off too fast. And, I think I've got some sympathy for that review, but I don't really think it explains the way Facile Vega stopped so tamely. I mean, if you're thinking of taking under 3-1 about a horse who was lame for a week after a really bad tailed off run in February, well, not for me at all. I'd have to lose if Facile Vega wins. I suspect there'll be plenty of layers on the exchanges when the time comes round. I mean, I was talking to somebody, a good judge of the Irish form, and he was saying that he wouldn't be surprised if this was one of those Supremes where a horse that was backed from sort of 25 into 14 on the day from Ireland came out and won the race, that none of us had really taken much notice of it. It has a bit got that kind of feel. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think in terms of form, if Marine Nationale was one of the horses trained by
Mm.
Willie Mullins rather than Barry Conwell, I think Marine Nationale would definitely be favoured. He's nudging 9-2 on the exchange. I see Bet365 as 7-2 non-run and no bet. I suspect that's a perfectly fair price. I mean, he only scrambled home last time out, but that was only his second run over hurdles. He was in a really good race. He travelled like the winner throughout, made a mistake at the wrong time, and then only pounced late as a result. But I thought it was a really good, solid run, and it's the best form on offer here. So my tactic at this stage is to be with Marine National. I'd love there to be a match bet, Marine Nationale against Facile Vega, and you could get sort of evens or odds against, which you should do looking at the prices, because I would be very much in the Marine Nationale camp.
Fascinating. Just play devil's advocate. I mean, do you think Marine National's form is that good? I know he made that last flight blunder in the Royal Bomb, but nonetheless, he beat Irish Point Ahead, who was lapped last time out in Ireland. And he comes here, very unusual prep run for a Supreme. He hasn't had a run this calendar year. And it's like reservations of you against, how should we say, more match fit rivals.
Well, I think that's been. I don't think there's been any problems. I think they just saved him to be fresh. He's held in the high score. Barry Collins had good horses in the past. I think he thinks better ground will suit him. He's bound to get that at Cheltenham. And as I say, if he was trained by Mullins, I think he'd be favourite rather than Facile
Right.
Vega personally. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if something is. Have you got your eye on any sort of dark ones that people? Obviously, a lot of these horses like Lucia of Henderson's isn't going to run. I mean, Talmuras, it sounds like Nichols is going to run rather than the Ballymore. I mean, his Tolworth form, Nichols said, okay, he only scrambled home, but it was still a good performance. And he said that Talmuras did not like the deep ground at Sandown, and he'll be a different horse on spring ground. But I must admit, I suspect that the form of the English horses, I've bored on about this for about the last 3 or 4 years, really, that there's a stone difference, isn't there, between certainly in terms of novices and the hurdlers and the graded form in both spears between Britain and Ireland. And I suspect that Talmuras' form is probably 10 or 15 lengths behind the Irish form. But he's obviously a nice horse, Talmuras. Maybe he'd be more one for Aintree in the spring rather than Cheltenham. A flat track might suit him better in time.
Yeah, good point you make there, Stephen. I mean, as a general rule, I would be against Facile Vega at the prices. Easy to see. There seems to be a new wave of confidence behind him. I can see him going off quite short again here, it appears. Yeah, I'm throwing in two at bigger prices for either field. I think it could be the kind of year, as I touched upon at the start of the show. It's about what they've not done as opposed to what they have done. And there's some total unexposed sorts in here who I think could run well. Diverge being one of them. Son of Frankel won a punch-down maiden hurdle by about 25 lengths on the bridle. It was a nothing contest, but couldn't have done it in any better fashion. I think comes here as an intriguing, lively contender. And then one for the home team, Chasing Fire. It's 16 to 1 non-runner, no bet. Represents Ollie Murphy. He had no hesitation saying this horse would be heading here unbeaten. Has quickened up nicely to win a couple of races again, albeit at much lower level. Collateral form, nowhere near the standard of any of those above them. But as I said, I get a feeling the form of what we've seen, in my view, is fair, but I don't think it's insurmountable. And I think there will be other horses in here who will really take a step forward. So I think there could be the shades of Thomas Darby Part 2 with Chasing Fire, of course, who finished runner-up in this race for the Yard 4 years ago. So I'm going 2 V to fill there, bigger prices, Diverge and Chasing Fire. Stevens with Marine Nationale. All in all, we're all taking on Facile Vega. Well, we are going to turn our attention to the Arkle Trophy now. One of my favourite races, not just in the week of the season, and this season's renewal looks to be no exception to the rule. Look, we could be looking at essentially a small field here, Stephen. I've got it around 5 runners. However, this really is one of the matchups of the week. On the opening day, Al Fabiolo, your Irish Arkle winner, currently heads the market 5 to 4. John Bon, the mighty John Bon, who's only tasted defeat once in his life. That, of course, was in the hands of Constitution Hill. He's 13 to 8. Dice at Dynamo, 5s. And then we're into bigger prices. It's a case of trying to work out who else is going to line up. I think probably Saint Roy and maybe one of the roughies might take their chance in a 4-5 runner Arkle. It's a small but very concentrated field here, Stephen. Which side of the fence are you? Al Fabiolo, John Bon, or are you smashing the fence over and going for something outside it?
No, I do think it is a match. I mean, you saying about that there's going to be sort of 5 or 6 runners, I think that's very critical, because if Dies at Dynamo, Appreciate It, Haddocks, Desobo all line up, they're all absolute bang front runners. We saw what happened when Dies at Dynamo and Appreciate It met last time out. They set the race up perfectly for Al Fabioli at Leopardstown in February, rather ruining each other and stopping completely. And Al Fabioli was really impressive. Now, I've listened to a lot of people saying, "Oh, we don't think El Fabiolo can jump. He makes loads." I thought he jumped fine. He made one really bad mistake that he did really well to recover from, and he flew home up the running. I thought it was by far the most taking performance out of all of them. John Bon is a horse who has surprised me on a few occasions. I'm normally quite negative on him in a way, in that I think he's had the run of small fields from the front that he's certainly not going to get here. But last time at Warwick, funnily enough, people were sort of quite negative, weren't they? He was sort of 14-1 on, and he looked in trouble. He traded at odds
I was
against
there,
in
yeah,
the run.
yeah.
Harry Skelton, I think Nicky Henderson said he swooped like a buzzard, was how he described it, which was quite good, I thought. And
I liked
John
it,
Bond was sort of asleep and woke up enough in time to win. I mean, it wasn't an impressive performance. That form is definitely not good enough, but maybe
that is
John Bond
two
was
stone. That is 2 stone below Al Fabiolo, to use your phrase, isn't it? Yeah,
Definitely,
yeah,
it definitely is.
yeah.
I mean, that's it. But I mean, I think Henderson's right. It was just a tactical race. It was one of those
Yeah.
races. Funny thing to say, Ed. I often think you're better off not seeing it. You know, oh, he won,
I know
and
what you mean.
just it
Yeah,
was a silly match
job
race
done.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
won. I mean, he wasn't impressive, but they are closely matched on hurdles form. I think there was a head between them when they met previously. I suspect there will be again. It's hard to make a case for anything outside the front two. I just think Al Fabioli, I assume, will be ridden by Daryl Jacob, who's a brilliant jockey. He's going to get a really strong pace to aim at on good to softish ground. Um, I think he's probably about the right price, 6-4. I don't think I'd want to take any less. But that being said, I think it's hard to make a case for any of the others given the makeup of the race. I can't see something getting a cheap lead, for instance. I think there's going to be a hotly contested pace, even if only 5 or 6 do turn up. And I think John Bond will probably sit third, and Daryl Jacob will sit on John Bond's tail and try and pounce after the last. I prefer Al Fabiolo.
Right, yeah, interesting. I mean, Al Fabiolo's that Irish Arkle form, in terms of raw form, is one of the best pieces of novice chase form we've had
Definitely.
for donkey's years, isn't it? John Bond, you say the actual raw form has been let down by Boot Hill in many respects, but again, you just get a feeling with him that Henderson's getting him right for the one day in March, whereas Al Fabiola was clearly, I think what we saw personally, I think what we saw in the Dublin Racing Festival last time out is as good as he probably is over this trip, but that is a very high standard. How much more improvement has John Bond got in the locker? Just very quickly throwing in it. I mean, the third favourite, Dice at Dynamo. Just coming back to your pace angle, is there not a chance he could get a soft lead here? If we've got 2 roughies, him and then the big 2, he's going to bomb off in front. He's got one. He's mad as a box of frogs, isn't he? He's got one way of going. He got lit up at the festival last year. He's going to go off hammer and tongs. Probably, maybe Canny Danny Mullins on. Maybe Paul Townend on. Who knows on the jockey arrangements? But do you think on the old course at Cheltenham, being a furlong shorter than the Dublin Racing Festival renewal, is there any chance you think he could use his speed and perhaps get a couple of the big guns in trouble on the back foot early?
Perhaps, but I mean, do you think Appreciate definitely won't run, Ed? Is that what
Oh,
you've
I'd say
led to believe?
I'd say 1,000-1 he lines up in this, unless there's injuries, of
Right,
course, which can happen. But yeah,
right,
he sounds nailed on for the Turners, going up to 2.5. So I'd be
right.
shocked if he did. And so I'm saying, so on terms of the solo and the front, I could see Dice at Dynamo bowling along in front. Whether he's got enough gas in the tank for
Yeah,
the
I
hill,
mean,
I suppose that's going to
yeah,
be the issue,
I mean,
isn't it?
I do love that sort of argument. I do remember Gentleman to Me beating Blue Lord. It was a similar sort.
Yeah,
You knew that one of them was going to get a solo 5 lengths clear on the lead, and
yeah.
he duly
They don't
returned
come
to
back.
form.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can hit, especially if the ground is good. You know, on good
Yeah.
spring ground, 6 lengths clear, flies the first. All of a sudden, the other two are looking at each other. It wouldn't be the first time it's happened, would it? But I mean, I would
No.
be worried about what happened to Dies at Dynamite at Cheltenham in the Supreme. That horrible crashing fall when I think.
Mm.
I mean, some of the form book says going easily when fell 3 out. I mean, he wouldn't go. He was about to get lapped, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know going easily. So that would be a concern. That's his only experience of Cheltenham, that horrible fall. So, he's a hard puller. He's not an I mean, if Danny is, book Danny Mullins, a brilliant jockey on front runners. I think
Mm.
he's had a fantastic season. He's seized the opportunities he's been given for the first time with both hands. So I can make a case for it. I certainly wouldn't be looking to take 5-1, though. I think you'd want a bigger price than that to take a chance. I mean, for a start, it's a big form reversal you're looking for from
Yeah.
last time out with El Fabiolo, isn't it? And I just think El Fabiolo will be well suited by the uphill finish at Cheltenham and a truly run race. And Daryl Jacob is a brilliant jockey for those sort of patient rides over fences, getting the fractions right and storming past John Bon up the hill. One thing I meant to say about John Bon, the one thing I would say that I am slightly worried about is I think he does jump a little bit out to his right. And if you're
Mm,
going like the clappers in an Arkle that's
mm.
truly run on goodish ground, those little half length props to the right could be a lot more costly.
Yeah, indeed. So I think it's a strong nod for El Fabiolo for Stephen. It's you've got to be slightly off the fence. I'm swaying towards El Fabiolo, but I'm gonna keep my powder dry for now. It should be a cracker nonetheless. Well, it's time to focus on the feature race of the Tuesday now. Of course, the Champion Hurdle. This revolves around one horse. Pretty much the whole 2 mile hurdling division revolves around one horse. That is Constitution Hill, 2-7 to get the job done here. Probably the easiest winner you will ever see of a Supreme Novice Hurdle last year, and has not had to come out of first gear to win so far this season in 2 starts. Even Stephen, I mean, look, it's 2-7. We're not going to rattle on for 5 minutes saying how good he is. Let's just flip this round and let's go into negative Stephen Harris mode. Look, realistically, what are the negatives about him at 2-7? Or are we being facetious here? Is there any issue with his jumping? Are you worried about the fact he's only had 2 runs in 11 calendar months? Is there a danger he could be undercooked? Is there a ground requirement which you think you could see him becoming undone on? Is there anything lurking in the pack you think could improve 10 to 12 pounds? Very quickly to surmise, is there anything in here which you see as the negative to stop Constitution Hill being perhaps a 1-7 shot to win this?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get into trouble, but I'm not the jockey's biggest admirer. The regular listeners might have noticed. I mean, I couldn't bet Nico de Boinville at 3-1 on if it was my last pound in the world, to be honest. But and if you're a layer, it's Cheltenham. They're all absolute tries against him. There's no soft lead here. I like to move it. He's a front runner probably, or he wasn't at Wincanton the other day, to be fair. But State Man almost certainly will front run. So Constitution Hill has just glided round Kempton and Newcastle this season against nothing. He did see off all the Irish horses in the Supreme last year. That looked a sort of freakish performance. It was so devastatingly impressive. But of course, John Bon, who was left trailing in his wake, has franked the form numerous times since, and it's worked out pretty well on the whole. So, instinctively you think the Irish form might be better. But I mean, as a racing fan, believe it or not, through all the miserableness, I would love to see Constitution Hill win by 15 lengths and be the
That'd be
next
brilliant. Yeah.
champion. Because racing needs superstars, it needs Frankels, it needs Cato Stars, it needs Desert Orchid. Ed, because if we don't have them, people soon lose interest with some of the mundane Monday to Friday stuff that gets put on in small fields these days. So we need a champion to spark people's enthusiasm, get the younger generation coming racing. And I really, really hope that Constitution Hill is that horse. He certainly looked it. He's a strong traveller. He's a sound jumper. He's a thoroughly game and genuine finder. He stays 2 miles really strongly, and he looks the best hurdler we've seen maybe since Isterbrack. So I really hope he is. State Man has done nothing wrong. He's a very useful horse. He's got winning form at Cheltenham, which is always a plus.
Mm,
He's still improving. He's been impressive in small fields in Ireland. I don't think personally that State Man is a 3-1 chance, and Valban, who's probably nudging 20 on the exchanges,
mm.
win only. I don't think there's that much between them personally. And if State Man
Interesting.
got taken on for the lead, for instance, by a horse like I Like to Move It, who has front run round
Mm.
Cheltenham with much success in the past, then that would be a negative for State Man's chance. And De Boinville won't be far away. He'll be sitting second or third at worst. So he could be harrowing State Man as well. I suspect Valban is a blinding each way bet. I mean, you're liable to get your account shut for trying to get on because it's got a terrible shape for bookmakers each way, this race, in my opinion, particularly as looking at those horses like Love Envar, Epatante, Honeysuckle, are all very unlikely to run in this race. So you could end up, I think you said, did you say 6 you thought?
I
You've
think it's will
worked
be
out?
6. I think we'll get Constitution Hill, State Man, Vauban. I Like to Move It. Zanny here. Not So Sleepy. That's the 6, isn't it? Yeah, that I'd buy or sell it 6. That would be the
Well,
that's my
he-
line there.
he-
Yeah.
here's another thing that could be a negative for State Man. Is Not So Sleepy, who is an absolute, has
Mm.
been in the past when given his head a complete tearaway, 20 lengths clear lunatic. So that could be a spoiler for State Man if Not So Sleepy's driving him mad as well. So my betting angle here is to try and get on Valban each way. I've seen 14 to 1, bet 365 at 10 each way, 3 places. You'll have worse bets. Also, I was looking at backing Valban without the favourite because let's say Constitution Hill, Nico puts the gun to State Man's head and blows him away, sort of turning for home, State Man. Then State Man could be out on his feet up the hill, and Vauban, who'll be ridden with patience
Pick up
and
the
is a
pieces.
thorough
Yeah.
stayer, yeah, could easily come through and finish second.
Yeah.
So my financial interest is going to be backing Vauban without the favourite, trying to get on Schneid each way in the next week or so, while they've still got all these runners listed and you get 3 places. But from a racing perspective, I would love the favourite to win by about 20 lengths, to be honest.
Indeed, should be an absolute thriller. That is the Champion Hurdle on the opening day of the Cheltenham Festival. Well, we're looking at the Mayor's Hurdle now, a race which has its critics for whatever reason. However you want to criticise it, you can. The one thing you can also say though is this race on paper is building up to one of the hottest contests of the week here, Stephen. This is absolutely a humdinger, isn't it? Honeysuckle in here at 9-4, the Queen of Ireland. Could be rattling off against former champion hurdle winner herself in Epperton. I mean, Marie's Rocks in here, the reigning champion. We'll come on to her in a minute. Brandy Love, a devastating winner at Fairy House last season. 6 Love Envoy, previous Cheltenham Festival winner. The list goes on. The 9-4 Honeysuckle. Where do you stand with her, Stephen? I mean, you could say even in defeat this year, her form is head and shoulders above some of the others in this lineup. Do you think she's regressing at a rate of knots? Do you think if she can run to her State Man form from last time out, that suffices? Do you think the trip's a worry? I mean, how do you sum up Honeysuckle as a 9-4 prospect to win the Mayor's Hurdle in her final ever run?
Yeah, I mean, I have got divide. I think it's a price thing. I
Right.
think 9-4 is plenty short enough, even if Marie's Rock doesn't run. We think Marie's Rock may well run in the stayers, don't we? That looks
Yeah.
probably
That's
in
the angle we're going
probability.
from. Yeah. Yeah.
Even then, I think that Honeysuckle is probably a little bit too short. If she got out to sort of 7-2, 4-1 on the day, which she may well do, there's a lot of people who have dismissed her. She's not getting any younger. She's been a shade disappointing twice this season. I mean, I thought first time out there were excuses and the form was actually quite strong. I think she came over and raced on her own, maybe just needed the run at a time when the Bromheads were quiet and idled in front and got picked off. So ahead of
Mm.
last time, don't forget, it was pounds, shillings, and pence for Honeysuckle last time against State Man. The whole world was on. She was favourite for a second on Betfair, on the exchange, in that race about a minute before. Now, they did slightly adjust late. I don't think she ran badly. She was a little bit flat in what was probably quite a tactical race again. So I don't think she's been seen to best effect twice this season. So I'm not in the sort of writing her off camp. I have got some sympathy for those people who say she should be running in the champion hurdle. She's the defending champion. She should be going out trying to defend her crown. But as if you own the horse, I think this is probably the right choice because she's going to be, 3-1 ish for this, and she'd probably be 100-7 for the champion hurdle. So I can understand why they're running in it. I think it's possibly a bit of a shame for racing, but that's another issue. I don't think that she's miles off her best. Maybe, as Kenny Alexander alluded to, she's £5 off her best. That's probably right. Do I want to back something that's not quite as good as she was at 9-4? No, I don't. Epatante, who I had been slightly disappointed with, perhaps wrongly, in her early starts, obviously with little chance against Constitution Hill. Last time out, absolutely sluiced up in the fighting fifth. I mean, she won hard held. I didn't particularly fancy her at the prices. I thought she's probably a favourite to lean against, but she was extremely impressive. And if she gets good ground, which is what Henderson has always said she wants, that she's got lots of speed. In her early days, she was a hard puller. It took a lot of settling, but she's much more the finished article, of course, now. She'll love good ground. She's got a turn of foot. I suspect she might start favourite, particularly if
Hmm.
JP wants to be on. I wouldn't be at all surprised. So it's a fascinating race around the front too. I mean, a mare I absolutely love Envoy. I saw her
Hmm.
at Sandown twice this season, my local track. It's been atrociously bad ground, and she's revelled in it. If we do get some rain, if they do water, a bit of cut in the ground, she is a very, very high class mare. And the one thing I like, we often say this, Ed, don't we, between us, that the one thing about Love Envoy is it's totally different form lines to the principals. They've all been banging each other's heads together against the
Hmm.
same horses in small field grade ones for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Whereas Love Envoy is an up and coming horse from a very good stable, and Harry Fry thinks she'll be a lot better on better ground. So I really like her. I think she's the one to side with. She's 6-1 with Bet365. I think that's a fair price. But this is another race. It's a belting good race, this, isn't it? This is day one at the Cheltenham Festival. Is always the best day, in my opinion. Every single race is fantastic, and this is no exception. What did you like? It's a race that's going to divide opinions, I think.
Yeah, it sure is. I'm very much in the Brandy Love camp. If we've got to talk
Right.
about Love Envoy, then we've got to talk about Brandy Love. They're the same price. They've met once. That was at Fairy House. And to be honest with you, Love Envoy did not see which way Brandy Love went. Actually spoke to Johnny Burke, who rode Love Envoy that day. He said he couldn't believe it, the speed in which Brandy Love took off. 1 by 8 lengths on that occasion. Obviously, she had a setback. Well, she missed the Cheltenham Festival last year because she had a setback. She's had a small setback in interim, came back, was pretty rusty at Punchestown a couple of weeks ago, but she clearly needed the outing. It was there to get her right for this. I think, providing we don't get some monsoons arrive and there's more good than there is any other type of ground description underfoot. I think Brandy Love, she's totally untapped. She's got a real turn of foot, trained by the genius that is Willie Mullins. And just very final point on her, it was interesting that Willie Mullins stressed how much he needed to get the run into Brandy Love. You remember he used to send
Mm.
Q Vega to the race first time out, and that was never a bother for him. He kept saying, I just need to get that run into her. I don't care where. He got the run into her. She was very weak throughout the morning. She was beaten by Queensbrook. Of course, she was runner-up in this race 12 months ago, and Brandy Love was giving her £9. And she looked, for 90% of the race, the winner, just emptied, to me, like a
Yeah.
horse who was 2 or 3 gallops short. So, all in all, I'm hedging on the fact I think Marie's Rock will go up to 3 miles. I'm not totally convinced Epatante will get up the hill over two and a
Right.
half at Cheltenham. I know that sounds a bit daft in many respects, but over 2.5 at Aintree on good ground is a
Mm.
totally different kettle of fish to strongly run 2.5 with a big hill at Cheltenham. She's such a strong
Yeah.
traveller. That would be my reservation about her. All in all, um, I'm with Brandy Love. I just think she's the younger legs, and as I said, as providing the ground doesn't turn very deep, I think she's got outstanding claims. If, as you say, if the ground got quite soft, Love Envoy, well, she will handle conditions more than anyone else. I think we'd all agree, though, this is an absolute belter. Get in touch. Let us know. Who do you think is going to win the Mayor's Hurdle? This absolute crackerjack of a race on the opening day at Cheltenham. Well, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle over 2 miles and 5 furlongs kicks things off on the Wednesday of this year's Cheltenham Festival. Now, we've spoken about the Irish Challenge. The home team have something here, Stephen. Hermes Allen, who's been absolutely devastatingly good so far for Paul Nicholls, heads the market 9-4. Then we have the wave of Irish challengers in behind, don't we? The likes of Ampere Pass, Gaelic Warrior, Good Land, of course, Emma Nagel has been pretty sweet on that horse all season. Champ Keeley. I mean, it's not just an Irish wave, is it? It's pretty much a Willie Mullins battalion in behind. I mean, Hermes Allen, he's got to break this Challow Hurdle hoodoo, hasn't he? Of horses who
Mm.
win that and then flop. We've spoken about it on previous shows, how the form of that Challow Hurdle really is starting to work out well now, isn't it? I think is it the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th have all come out and bolted up in decent contests. And Hermes Allen, I mean, do you think he's the right favourite? Question number one. 9-4, would you be taking him on or would you want him on side?
I think 9-4 is too short. I suspect he'll be
Right,
bigger on the day. I think he is the most likely winner. He is my selection, and
right.
I've half selected him going against the grain because from experience,
You're
the
confusing me
Irish
now. Yeah.
horses. Yeah, the Irish was also strong. But that shallow hurdle was so taking. The way he travelled and jumped superbly and drew clear when asked again after the last, I thought it was a brilliant performance. And it's the most impressed I've been by a novice this whole winter. And I think, apart from Constitution Hill, I think he's the best chance of a graded winner for the English trainers, to be honest. And Nichols
Mm.
has put him away since the Challow. There's been nothing wrong. He's improving at home. He's a very strong traveller. If the ground's going to be good or good to soft, which we think it probably is, I think that'll really suit him. And as you
Right.
say, the form, it's not just the form of you wear it well and um, others in the race. Horses who were tailed off or pulled up like Crambo and Kilbeg King have been coming out and winning really impressively. That form
Mm.
is as hot as any novice hurdle form in the UK so far this season. So I think he's a horse with loads of potential. When he first arrived, and I quite like this, they obviously paid a telephone number. They sent him to Stratford, and I think Nichols was terrified because he hadn't shown anything at home. He'd been working very moderately, and he absolutely flew round Stratford, and he came round jumping the last. All the others were coming round the final turn. He beat nothing, but it was really impressive, and he's done nothing but impressive. I think you've got a lot of potential with him. Of the Irish horses, the one I like the most is Good Land, but he has halved in price, or even, I think he was 14 or 16 to 1 a month or two ago. He's really shortened up. He's been very popular. He's a popular preview evening horse. I like his form. He's got the potential to do better. But I'm going to stick with Hermes Alana. I'm hoping that he'll be a horse that you'll get a decent price about on the day. I certainly couldn't take 9 to 4, but if he drifted out in what looks a pretty competitive renewal, maybe to around 7 to 2, something like that, I'd definitely have him winning. He's a horse and I think he's going to be a cracking chaser, probably over 3 miles next season. One thing with Nichols, he doesn't hang around with novice herders. He knows they're going to be chasers. This one won't be running over hurdles for much longer after this, I don't think. I think he'll be straight over fences next season. I think he's a really exciting long-term prospect, whatever happens in the Ballymore.
Yeah, I have no strong views on this, but I'm very interested. You mentioned 3 miles there. If you were training Hermes Allen, would you be tempted not to run him in the Albert Bartlett? Because the quality of that race on paper compared to this looks chalk and cheese. This could end up being really, really hot. The Albert Bartlett, which we'll touch upon later, they all just keep beating each other. But they're kind of 5 to 1 the field in that. I don't know. Would that be something that you'd consider, or do you think, as you say, Nichols might not want to overface him into a 3 mile grueling contest at this
Well,
stage
that's
of his
it.
career?
I mean, the Albert Bartlett ruins horses, doesn't it? I remember some of the heavy ground Albert Bartlett's things popping up at sort of 50 to 1, and you don't really see them ever again. It tends to be a real slug, even on good to soft ground. The horses don't
On that
tend to
new
go on. And
course,
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
they paid a lot of money for Hermes, and he's not like a horse for one season and you never see. I think he is they're thinking he's going to be a grade 1 3 mile King George Gold Cup
yeah.
horse in years to come. I think he was like, I can't remember, I haven't got it in front of me. I think it was like 400 grand they paid for him. And as I say, he's taken a while to come to hand, but Nichols, he's quite good at. I'm not with Nichols. Some trainers you'd be thinking, well, he hasn't run since the Challow. It's a quarter of the season he's missed. But I think Nichols decided after that race he wasn't going to run him again. The ground's probably been too firm in the UK anyway. He's going to have him freshened up and ready. I think he'll get a positive ride. Cobden, we haven't mentioned Harry Cobden yet. Absolutely fantastic watching him ride this season. Okay, he's a brilliant horseman and his confidence is really high because Nichols is absolutely putting in winners every 5 minutes during the week. But Cobden over a hurdle and a fence, I can't remember him making a mistake. He doesn't. I mean, you're tempting fate here, but he doesn't come off horses. They don't make blunders. He sees strides better than almost any jockey
Mm.
in the weighing room. And I think Hermes Allan will front run here out of bother, hopefully get more or less left alone. And he's a strong stayer. He's a really good jumper of hurdles. And yeah, I'll be disappointed if he doesn't win. But just at the back of my mind
Just
is
the
the thing,
price, right?
the price is too short in what looks a competitive race, and you're taking on the Bank of Ireland, aren't you? There's
Yeah.
6 or 7 unexposed horses here that could be on a different level altogether. So that is at the back of my mind.
It is, but do not adjust your sets. Stephen Harris is tipping an English horse to win at the
Mm.
Cheltenham Festival. Hermes Allen for the Ditch Eat Maestro to win the Ballymore. Well, we're looking at the Brown Advisory Novices Chasing. Our Grade 1 action over the 3 miles on the old course on the Wednesday. We could be looking at a small field again here, Stephen, but chocked full of quality. First things first, we'll look at that graphic. Say it's unlikely, as things stand, the likes of Mighty Potter, Galliard de Manil make the gig. So that the market's going to have a bit of a change of complexion, you would imagine, over the course of the next week or so. One thing that's not going to change is Jerry Colombe is running in this. An impressive winner at Sandown last time out when he had to pull out a lot out the locker, didn't he? And he did respond. Your 7-4 market leader, Stephen. You with or against him? If you're against him, who are you taking on Jerry Colombe with?
No, I think Jerry Colombe is going to be one of the best backed horses on the second day at the Cheltenham Festival. I think he's a real banker, and I'll be disappointed if he's
Right.
beaten. I saw him at Sandown in the Silly Isles. There was a point, wasn't there, where he looked bang in trouble. He was being driven along, and Nicky Henderson's very useful Balco Coastal swept past him, and you thought, well,
Yeah.
is that the end of him? But he found his stride again after the last, and he powered up the hill. I mean, basically, he was winning that Silly Isles over 2 mile 4, which is an inadequate trip for him. He's definitely going to relish
Oh,
every yard of this
3. Yeah.
extended 3 miles. It's exactly what he wants. And I mean, there's a horse here, Time Hill, 5-1. If that wins, I'll get a job, Ed. I mean, I can't. He's jumping.
Really?
He's jump.
Yeah.
He's jumping.
Grade
No,
1 winner,
he's
but
jumping.
yeah.
It'll fall
Yeah.
apart here under pressure in a truly run race. He won a
Okay,
race that
fine.
collapsed the other day. They all ruined
All
each
right.
other and stopped, and he got dragged to the front. You'll find he'll be losing half a length at every fence in this, and they won't be able to find him. If he wins or frames, it's going to be a losing day for me. I'll have to be bang against him. But I do think
Okay.
that this is often we say about anti-post betting. We've done it a lot, haven't we, on Jump to It over the last few months, that really some of the prices on offer are not that appealing. They bet very tight. They're offering non-run and no bet. But I think in this instance, sort of 7-4, I don't think you'll get bigger than that, Jerry Colombe. He's definitely
No.
going to run in the race. He's
Yeah.
definitely going to love 3 miles. He's held in the highest regard at home. Everything looks in place. And I'm not sure
This is
there's a
going to cut up
second
as
in.
well. Yeah.
I think he's
Yeah.
going to end up being sort of 10-11, that sort of thing. I think he's a bet now. If your second in is going to end up being perhaps Time Hill, then I think you're in trouble as a bookmaker. The real whacker who will front run and
Good
make it a
jumper.
true
Yeah.
test, for me,
Yeah.
has been flattered in small fields where they've left him alone.
Right.
I know he's trained by a trainer who's in terrific form. He's having winners. I think he had a treble at Catterick the other day. He's doing really well.
Patrick
But I
Neville.
think
Yeah.
he's rock bottom price now, the real whacker. He's had the run of some pretty ordinary races the last twice.
Right.
Not for me at all. I think the favourite's a standout. I think this is one of those races probably people haven't spent all that much time looking at. Have you done a counter? But I know you like to. You've sort of got these figures of how many horses you think are going to run. How many do you think will run in this? Because it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think there's only going to be 5 or 6 runners in this, then 7-4 is a very, very big price.
Yeah, I've got buy or sell at 7. That's the
Right.
line I've got on this. But you haven't mentioned the joker in the pack here yet, Steve. One horse we've got to throw in, and that is Sir Gerhard, who is currently 5-1 non-runner no bet, unbeaten at the Cheltenham Festival, of course. Winner of the Ballymore last year, your champion bumper winner, multiple Grade 1 winner. Look, he had a little setback, didn't he? And it's been a belated kind of seasonal reappearance over fences. He didn't convince on his chasing debut. Nonetheless, he won by 938 lengths. Look, facts are, this is a very unusual angle coming into this race, in that Sir Gerhard would be representing Willie Mullins, who has never run a horse in the Brown Advisory, as far as I'm aware, on the back of just one chase start. So he's almost not the profile you normally want for a horse of this type of contest. However, I mean, if you're going to run all these over hurdles, I mean, he's in a different postcode to them. I mean, wasn't he? He was about 9-2 to win a champion hurdle only a year ago. I mean, you'd be giving 2 stone to the real whacker in a handicap hurdle. You see what I'm saying? So surely he's got to come into the equation here. His jumping could be a bit iffy, but on raw class, I put it this way: I think he goes off clear second favourite in this. I
Right.
think the wave of money, all right. I think it'll be Jerry Colombe will be touching evens. Sir Gerhard will be chopped in. Then you'll go Time Hill, Real Whacker, and then a couple of roughies to make the field up. But I just think Sir Gerhard on raw ability. How can you leave him out? As I said, he would in terms of hurdling ability here. He's pretty much the best horse in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I think with Sir Gerhard is, and you touched upon it, we've only really seen him once in the last 11 months. And in running, in that three-runner race where he did win by a long way in the end, but he traded at odds against him running. He was 6-1 on before the race. I thought he looked in bother. Now, it might have been, he did make a calamitous early blunder, didn't he? But it might have been that he was tapped at 2 miles. I think it was Lagi Debut was making the running at quite a brisk pace and looked in command briefly. He went quite a long way clear, and Sir Gerhard won in it. I wasn't particularly impressed with that, and I think it is alarming that he's only made it to the track once in 11 months. Of course, he was very disappointed back in April at odds on. I think that was his first run over fences when well held in third. So he cannot have been an easy horse to train, and he's right up from 2 miles on heavy ground to an extended 3 miles on probably good ground. So there's lots of question marks there, whereas Jerry Colombe is progressive, improving, race fit, been laid out for this race. I wonder with Sir Gerhard if he's just one of those horses might have got a bit lost. You know, he's obviously had lots of physical issues.
Yeah.
We did just chat, didn't we? I had thought he might be going to the Turners, but looking at the exchanges, he's sort of 33 for the Turners and 5-1 tight for the Brown Advisory. So if they're any guide, he'll definitely be taking on Jerry Colombe in the Brown Advisory. So that's something for punters to bear in mind. But I must admit, looking at this race with fresh eyes now, 7-4 Jerry Colombe, I think it is a really fair price. And I try and avoid thinking that at the festival because I don't think it's a place you get any medals taking short prices. But I suspect if you take 7-4 now, you'll have a belting earner on the day. He might be a lot shorter.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you. There we go. The double kiss of death on Jerry Colombe from myself and Stephen. Pretty much the Wednesday nap. Well, the Queen Mother Champion Chase comes under the microscope now. The feature race on the Wednesday of the Cheltenham Festival. Stephen Harris has been going through it with a fine-tooth comb. Look, we could talk for about 9 hours just on this race in itself. So many different angles in here. Energumene, Edwardstone, 7-4 joint favourites. Of course, Energumene, the defending champion. Edwardstone, last season's Arkle winner. Then got to Editor de Gite, who down both of them in a rearranged Clarence House chase last time at 6-1. Gentleman to Me came right back to winning ways, an emphatic success in Ireland last time out at 8, and went then into bigger prices. The rest, I mean, look, we haven't got all night on this one, Stephen. As much as I'd love to sit and discuss this with you over a glass of diet lemonade, lots of different angles of form lines in here, lots of different viewpoints. Energumene and Edwardstone, I've been on doing a bit of the preview night circuit. This seems to be the race that is really polarising opinion. I listen to some people say Energumene should be 4-6, and I listen to others who think Edwardstone's an absolute nap, and I listen to other people saying Editor de Gite is getting absolutely no credit at all for convincingly beating them both. I think all three angles of logic are totally plausible in their own way. Which way are you going?
Well, I think this is a fascinating race. The first thing to say is I think it is a complete match between the front two, and I'll be price-driven as to which way I jump.
At the prices now, Stephen.
Well, they're both 7-4 joint favour. I'd probably go towards Edwardstone, but I don't think you need to move yet. I think you might get a bigger price because Tony Bloom, who owns Energumene, is a very, very big punter. He left it behind in the Clarence House. He was a telephone number bet, and he will be on again. I don't think they think Energumene was right, so I think they might end up sort of 5-4 and 5-2, in which case I'd definitely be with Edwardstone. The key to this whole race, to try and put it in a nutshell, is that the two horses, Gentleman to Me and Editor de Gite, I think almost certainly will absolutely ruin each other. They're both front runners. Yeah. They'll be harrying each other. I don't fancy Editor de Gite at all at the prices. Currently 6-1. I think that's far too short. I'm going to oppose him a place. And I don't really think Gentleman to Me, who they sort of ignored and forgot about when he escaped last time in Ireland, I don't think he's got much of a chance either. I think he's an Aintree horse in the spring on good ground on a flat
Right.
track where he'll lead on his own. I mean, he put in a devastating performance at Aintree last year, one of the most taking performances we've seen
Mm.
from a novice,
Beating
beating
Edwardstone.
Edwardstone, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think that'll be happening at Cheltenham. The two slight negatives with Edwardstone are Alan King's stable form. I think he's been basically pretty quiet since the big freeze. He's only 2 from 27 at the time of recording. Obviously, we're a week and a half away from Cheltenham, so that could change by the time that comes round. But I don't think they've been flying. And Edwardstone did have a bruised foot after getting bit. I mean, how he got beat here by Editor de Gite last time. He had the perfect setup. I still can't believe it. I think he was 1.01 in running, and Editor de Gite battled back so bravely. But there'll be no solo on the lead for Editor de Gite this time. I think a Gentleman de Me will ruin him. And Edwardstone's got a great make-up for Tom Cannon to try and swoop late. Energumene, I don't think, got a very good ride in the Clarence House. He over racing behind them. He kept jumping up out to his right onto the heels of the front runners and kept getting reined back by Townend. And then I thought he got caught a couple of lengths out of his ground turning for home and then made a bad mistake and weakened rather tamely up the hill. I suspect you'll see Energumene in a different light in this race. I think they'll ride him with patience. They'll let Gentleman de Me ruin Editor de Gite, and they'll be looking to pounce smoothly on the bridle after the last. But I just think maybe Edwardstone has again got a brilliant make-up. He should like the goodish ground. He's a tough, durable performer. If he went to a bigger price on the day, I'd be with him. But I do think it's a match between the front two. Who do you like, Ed? It's a fascinating. You could talk all day about this race. It's another belting good
indeed.
race.
It really is a great race. Fingers crossed they will make it. On balance, I'm with Edwardstone. I do not buy this back-fitted, didn't like the white fences. That's the Energumene excuse, isn't it? And all this nonsense. No, forget all that. Look, every horse can have an off day. But Edwardstone, I think if Tom Cannon had the chance again, I've watched that race back a couple of times. He asked Edwardstone to make up a lot of ground on Editor de Gite, and perhaps he was eyeballing Energumene and just following Energumene around, and Editor de Gite slipped them and suddenly thought, hang on a minute, I've now got to make up 6-7 lengths up the Cheltenham Hill. I think he'll come on for that run a little bit as well. And the King said he'd had a little bit of a hiccup in his preps for that run. I think he'll strip fitter. On balance, I think Edwardstone, there's one you're going to wince at here, Stephen, I think could absolutely pick up the pieces and pass 4 beaten runners into third, and that is Nube Negra. I don't think he can win it, but if they do go a million miles an hour up front, I can see this falling apart. This is going to be a 6-runner race. He will be anchored and last with the ambulance. If Editor de Gite and Gentleman de Me fall in a hole, that's 2 of them gone. Leaves him and Granatine coming through up the run-in. And say, if Energumene fails to fire again, put it this way, Nube Negra finishes third at 25-1. I'm not shocked, put it that way. But
wouldn't be surprised. You're right. About the makeup. You're right.
The
thing with Nube Negra is needs good ground. He's a good ground horse. He's won in soft ground, but he's a good. He's a good ground. When he's right. I don't think he was right the other day. He definitely wasn't right. A few of Skeltons have been quiet during that time. The only thing I think with Nube Negra is, I assume he's going to run this race, but they have been Aintree is the target, I think, and I think he's more of an Aintree horse. Flat track, gliding around on the bridle on spring ground. He's got loads. I can see where you're coming from, though. I like a hold-up horse. I like a snide each way bet, so I don't take much.
That's the thing. But that's my schneid. So we're both with Edwardstone to win, and I'm going to go Nube Negra to place on the assumption we've got good ground, and on the assumption he lines up. But let's say non-runner no bet. You can pay your chances, take your dues, or whatever the phrase is. I can't get out. I'm too flummoxed by this race, Stephen. This is one that's been caused me a lot of grief trying to unfathom this equine Rubik's Cube, as to be said. But anyway, 2 votes for Edwardstone. Come on, the Alan King good thing. Well, the Turner's Chase kicks things off on the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival. 2.5 mile Grade 1 action for the novice chasers here. Let's not forget, we're switching to the new course for the Thursday to Friday. So much more of a stamina-sapping, demanding ask of horses. Now, Mighty Potter is your 11-8 market leader here, Stephen. Very quickly becoming one of the Irish bankers of the festival. I wouldn't be shocked if he goes off odds on for this. That's just my opinion in a race which I could see cutting up to 5 or 6 runners. Devastatingly impressive last time out in Ireland. Al Fabiolo, a million to line up here. So you're probably looking at Banbridge, Appreciate It, Balco Coastal, and a couple of others against him. I mean, how do you sum up his claims? 11 to 8, right price for you? Are you of the view he's one of the bankers of the Thursday?
I couldn't back him at a short price because I think there's some
Okay.
interesting runners against him, but he's hard to crab, isn't he? He's been really impressive since going over fences. Sound jumper, strong traveller. He'll certainly stay this trip really strongly. There's no doubt about that. And Gordon Elliott comes into the festival at the time of record. He's had 9 winners in the last 14 days. They're at the top of their game again. So lots of positives for Mighty Potter. I gather he's stable nap. All the lads are on. I think he's got down to his price now. The second in Banbridge, well, I think Banbridge was very flattered by finishing second behind El Fabiolo last time out. He was out the heat of the
Mm.
race. They went a million miles an hour and stopped, and he was dragged in to finish second late on. He still ran really well, but I think maybe people are being a little bit suckered by watching that race, thinking, oh, he ran a career best. He's really improved. I think he gave his running. I think he is what he is. Obviously, he's got a good record
Right.
over this course and distance, which is a
He's
plus.
back up in trip.
Again,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, 2 mile
yeah,
4 will definitely suit him. It was 2 mile 1, wasn't it, in behind El
yeah,
Fabiolo last time? He ran really well, as I say. I just think people have seen that he's got to that price because of last time, and I think probably
yeah,
there was a good explanation as to why he ran so well. To discuss the 2 English runners, which are both interesting horses, Stage Star, Progressive. He does hang badly out to his left, and he got a brilliant ride when he won that handicap here
yeah.
um, last time out. Cobden stayed up the inside on what turned out to be the best part of the track and nipped clear. He won very readily. That form is definitely okay, but he did have the run of the race from the front, which he won't get here. And I am worried. Funny thing to say about a horse who jumps left, but he does jump left. It might not matter that much as
Mm.
things panned out last time, but it could be more of a negative here if he's taken on for the lead and doesn't get things his own way. I think he's got a lot to find. I think this is a much better race than that handicap, and obviously on the figures he certainly has. The one, perhaps the best of the English horses, Balco Coastal,
Mm.
always been
Yeah,
held in high regard. First time out over fences this season, he got Nico de Boinville. He didn't jump well. He was in the car park, the usual excuses. But he got his act together when he won. He was impressive, and that was on
yeah.
decentish ground. And he ran a screamer against Jerry
Mm.
Colombe, who we think
Good
is one of
form.
the bankers of the week.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
yeah.
ran really well at Sand, and he travelled all over him and just got outstayed. Well, if this is on good ground, he'll definitely run well. I think he's a live outsider, but it does look like Mighty Potter's favourite and very much the one to beat. I haven't got a massively strong view on the race.
Myself and Stephen Harris are looking at the Ryanair chase now. What should be a humdinger of a contest. Shishkin is back. Well, at least that's what we think after his runaway rout at Ascot recently. As a consequence, that's seen him propelled into 8 to 11 market leader to land this grade 1. We've got Blue Lord 9 to 2, like a flated. Very unlikely to run in this 5's Fury Road. Same connections. Pretty much is a runner 15 to 2. Then we're into the likes of Janadil 15 to 2 and Envoy Allen at 12s, 14s bar. Look, let's not beat around the bush. Let's be blunt here, Stephen. 8 to 11 Shishkin. In many people's eyes, the banker of the week. They think, a lot of people are saying he's going to have 4 or 5 horses to beat here. He's got to jog round at 80% and win. Do you share that view, or do you think there's perhaps more on has he got more on the plate than the market would suggest?
Well, obviously, it depends on what turns up, doesn't it? I mean, my first instinct is that he is a terrible price for a horse who's shown his running once in the last 18 months. And I have got my doubts. I opposed him and did my money rather cheaply than some. I laid him a place second and to be in the first 3 as well the other day when he bounced right back to seemingly his best form. But at the back of my mind, he's obviously a horse who's had loads of physical issues, and you can't back horses with his history at 8 to 11. That being said, he might not end up with many horses to beat. This could be. I mean, you've had a. What did you get to when you counted this race? Because
God
I like
7.
your
Yeah,
estimate.
God, I've
7,
gone
right?
7.
So
7 with Blue Lord of Fury Road as the most credible challengers on paper.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think Blue Lord is arguably a blinding each way bet 9 to
Mm.
2 with bet 365, 3 places. as you say, if there's 7 runners, I mean, you wouldn't want to lay 11 to 10 on a place. Blue Lord, he's rock solid. He was a little bit flat last time out, but Gentleman to me is a pretty useful performer when allowed to dictate on his own. And Blue Lord was just one pace turning for home there. I wouldn't hold that against him. He's got a really tough and durable profile. I could only back him. I mean, Shishkin, before that return to form last time out, there wasn't a great deal of stable confidence behind him. They weren't sure that he was anywhere near what he used to be. And obviously, he's had lots of physical problems that they think they've corrected. But I mean, I heard another very good judge who I respect say he thinks Shishkin should be as short as Constitution Hill. Well, I mean, that is absolute nonsense. I mean, Constitution Hill has got a very progressive profile, has done absolutely nothing wrong. Shishkin's been on the missing list for the best part of 18 months. The last time he ran at Cheltenham, he was beat after 100 yards. No, not for me at 8 to 11. I'll have to be against him. I still think there's every chance he might blow out and those old issues could resurface. And I just, at the back of my mind, he beat Pic Dory fairly convincingly in the end at Ascot. The other runner in the race for me, Fakir Dudares, was very weak in the market and very disappointing on the day, never travelling with any frequency. And in the past, Pic Dory has been something of a weak finisher before his winning spree this season. So I have got my doubts about what that form amounts to. You've got 2 pretty solid horses in Blue Lord and Fury Road against him, and I'd much sooner be with a package of those 2 each way than I would backing Shishkin at 11 to 8 on.
Yeah, Blue Lord, the 5 to 1 boost for the Ryanair chase here. I've been long a fan of Blue Lord for this race. I was obviously totally bemused when Shishkin came roaring back to success from a pure mercenary sense, because I thought Blue Lord was kind of nailed down to run a stormer in this. He's now got a formidable challenger on his hands again if we get Pete Shishkin line up. But Blue Lord, for me, I cannot knock him out of the frame. I'm in total agreement with you here, Stephen. He tried 2.5 miles once over fences. I mean, this was the initial plan all along at the start of the season. They stepped him up in the Clodmile Oil Chase to 2.5. On very deep ground, he pulled hard, but he outstayed Tornado Flyer, previous King George winner. I thought that was really good form in context, and I think 2.5 round here will suit him. I think I'm with you. I think he will give Shishkin a lot to think about, a lot more than the market suggests. So 2 of us here, we respect Shishkin, but we're taking him on with Blue Lord. Well, the Stairs Hurdle is the feature race on the Thursday of the Cheltenham Festival, and this looks like being a very competitive renewal. If you go back through the last few months or so, Stephen, we've had a pretty much flip-flopping favourites for this race. It seems to be a new favourite every week in many respects. So, of course, we had Home by the League come out. We've had Blazing Cow back to success. Tahupu romped home in the Galmoy. And if Marie's Rock goes this route as well, it's not hard to envisage her being well backed. And of course, we've not mentioned Florian Porter, who's the 2-time defending champion. Brilliant race, this. Really looking forward to it. Looks wide open. What is the betting angle?
Well, I agree totally. This looked like it was going to be a real sort of mess because Blazing Cow was sort of 20 at one point. Flooring Porter looked $1 million to run. Mary's Rock was going to run in the other race. And all of a sudden, we've got them all by the look of things.
Hopefully,
as you say, we've had 4 different favourites and we might not have got the right one yet. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised on good ground if Mary's Rock was favourite because she's a smooth traveller with a really good turn of foot. She's a prolific winner. She's versatile. She'll love a true run race here, and she'll definitely
she'll get 3 miles. You think
that is the thing? Yeah. She will on good ground, I think, but I don't think she will if it was soft. I think that would definitely be a concern. She's got winning form on soft ground, but I think she's a smooth traveller with a bit of speed. Yeah. And over this trip, I think she could be vulnerable up the hill if it was soft. Look, it's not going to be soft, is it? It's going to be good to soft. It might be drying out by this day. We don't know at the moment. The favourite for me, Blazing Cal, is 4 from 4 over hurdles. He's had lots of physical problems. They thought they were not had any chance at all of getting to the Cheltenham Festival. I think he's been 20 on the exchanges. He reappeared the other day. He was very weak in the market. I think he was returned about 6 to 1, but he was 8 or 9 at various times. Yeah. Huge drifter. He won. I wasn't as impressed as some by that. I don't think he had a great deal to spare. He might have been 75% fit. We don't know. He could be a bounce candidate in this race, and I don't think in terms of form that he's got compelling form claims. Obviously, he's run twice at Cheltenham. He's won twice at Cheltenham. He's the best horse Charles Burns has probably ever trained. He's trained by a genius. The market will be fascinating on the day, as it always is with all the Charles Burns horses. See what they make of him. He might well be now. They think he's 100% right. He's come forwards for that run. He might well be stable nap. They certainly know what they've got. I couldn't back him at 3-1. I think that's a bad price in terms of form. I think he's a bounce candidate. Tihupu, his form is progressing nicely. Whether beating Honeysuckle, we'll see, won't we? Earlier in the week, the merits of that form, how she gets on in the mare's hurdle. Obviously thriving, no doubt about stamina for Tihupu, I wouldn't have thought.
Ground?
Decentish ground. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Decentish ground, it must be a slight question mark, mustn't it?
Well, he bombed out in the champion hurdle last year, didn't he? And you do just wonder, the best of his form has come on pretty deep ground. Gordon Elliott's kind of poo-pooing that, saying, well, we've been running him over the wrong trip. When he gets 3 miles, that's been more the issue rather than the ground. But it's got to be something to worry about, hasn't it?
Question mark. I mean, I've stuck with Flooring Porter for betting expert selections. I don't think he's been seen to best effect twice this season. He's obviously then had a very bad injury that's kept him off for a while, and they were doubtful about getting him back. But recent reports seem much more encouraging. Danny Mullins will be on board. I mean, when he's won the Stayers hurdles, he has got some brilliant rides from the front. There's probably Danny Mullins has seized his opportunities, hasn't he, this season?
Yeah, brilliant.
With injuries of others, he's so good from the front, Ed. I mean, and he's brilliant over a fence or a hurdle. And with Flooring Porter, the pair of them know each other really well. He was waiting in front last year when he won. He kicked at the right time, and he stayed on strongly up the hill. And I think they'll galvanise him again from the tape. He's got to be a fair price in what is quite a hot race, and he is my selection. I think he'll be the one they'll struggle to get past if he's back to anywhere near his best on the day.
Okay, Flooring Porter for you, Stephen. Just a couple of others I want to mention quickly. Number one is Gold Tweet. Of course, the French raider who, at the time of recording, not entered in the race, but connections have confirmed, French connections, that he will be supplemented. The kind of social media story going around is that he only ran in the Cleve Hurdle because the owners wanted a weekend in the Cotswolds. Of course, he bolted up. They realised he wasn't entered, and they've had to... they're going to have to stump up the cash to get him in the race. It sounds like a pretty bonkers story. But, I mean, looking back at it, he did fairly bolt up in that assignment, didn't he? But I think they are looking for a bit of rain with him. He would want soft grounds. And then the other horse in here I'm going to throw in, I wouldn't totally give up on Paisley Park placing in this. I think perhaps the years would be beyond him winning. But if a bit of rain arrived, I don't think he was right in that race. It was a stop-start, messy affair. Yeah. He's got a stunning record in this race. Obviously placed it last year, has won it before. When we spoke about will Marie's Rock stay, Tihupu, ground, will he stay? Flooring Porter, is he right? Paisley Park, we know he stays. We know he loves Cheltenham. On balance, I wouldn't be shocked if he placed. But just very quickly on Gold Tweet, Stephen. I mean, are we being a bit snobbery here for one? You know what I mean? I mean, he bolted up. Well, he absolutely bolted up the Cleve Hurdle last time.
And this is very good for racing, isn't it? We don't in my youth, in my 20s, we used to get horses like Nupsala. I mean, you probably weren't even born there, but Dumont used to bring over French horses regularly, and they used to win, and they were competitive. Barracuda, fantastic, with his with a boy riding him who was agricultural, but he knew Barracuda Thierry. He knew Barracuda so well, needed putting in front for about 10 strides, and he used to do it, and it adds colour. And Gold Tweet. It was a pretty remarkable performance. I think stamina was a massive question mark before that Cleve. And he pulled really hard for all of the race. He was tanking all over them. You thought, well, surely he's just going to be one that he'll hit the hill and he won't get up the hill. But he did. I mean, it was really impressive. He's one from left hill. Paisley Park, I know you love this sort. Paisley Park, you don't need to back him before the race. I see 365 or 40. Put in to back him at sort of 100. On the exchange, maybe leave the bet up and pray he gets matched because he'll look a million. He'll be back. He'll be under pressure in about 8th, falling out the back of the TV. And at Cheltenham, sometimes, especially in the Stayers hurdle, the complexion can change. I mean, he's knocking on a bit. Yeah, he's knocking on a bit. He's probably a bit past his best, but he's got loads of brilliant runs in this race and at Cheltenham, and he'll trade at a huge price in running. I suspect he'll
Yeah.
be running on for 6th, won't he? He's going to be
Yeah.
that sort of run, but you never know. The pace could collapse. He could pick up the pieces.
Yeah, indeed. So to narrow your colours, Tomas, you'd be Flooring Porter.
Yeah, I'm hoping Danny Mullins can win for a third time. And it'll be some story. Gavin Cromwell absolutely flying in
Yeah.
Ireland at the moment. He's having a winner every day of the week, and it'd be great if he can get Flooring Porter back.
Yeah, I'll be Marie's Rock if she runs Paisley Park to place. That'll be my 2 Vida field in what looks a wide open renewal of the Stairs Hurdle. Well, Gold Cup Day gets underway with the Triumph Hurdle. Of course, Grade 1 juvenile action over 2 miles, 1 furlongs on the new course at Prestbury Park. Lossiemouth for Blood Destiny vying for favouritism here. It's the Willie Mullins stronghold, as it is on many of the races at this year's Cheltenham Festival. Lossiemouth Blood Destiny, as I said, more or less tit for tat at the head of affairs. Galan Marceau 5-1. Comfort Zone, who won the Triumph Hurdle trial at Cheltenham at 10-1, and you're into bigger prices here. Look, let's get to the chase. Lossiemouth Blood Destiny. Which side of the fence are you, Stephen? If you don't like either of them, who are you taking them both on with?
Well, I mean, the Triumph Hurdle is completely changed, isn't it? When, 10, 15 years ago, it used to be 35 runners, 6-1 the field, English trainers dominating. Now it's become a very high class race with not much dead wood in it and not many runners, and Ireland completely dominant. And I think
Yeah.
Lossiemouth is the standout contender. She did
Right.
get beaten last time out, but obviously you watch that run back, you can see what happened. Townend got parked behind a pacemaker and lost about 10 lengths. Car park trip. I thought he ran really well. I'll be amazed if she doesn't reverse the form with Gala Marceau, stablemate.
Right.
I think she's a high-class filly held, and she was 11-8 on for this race about 2 months ago, which, those of us who are old enough to remember old Triumph hurdles, it was hard to believe. But she's gone out to a much more backable price now. I don't think she's even favourite on the exchanges. Maybe bigger than 2-1 looking at them today. Blood Destiny, 2 from 2, an unknown quantity, looks extremely useful. What do you think the jockey arrangements are going to be for the front two here? Because you were telling me a good story when Paul Townend got off Lossiemouth last time out. There was ructions in the paddock, apparently, wasn't there? A certain
Well,
owner
again,
wasn't too pleased with Townend.
it's social media circles, but yeah, there seemed to be a little bit of friction, didn't there, in the aftermath of Leopardstown and Willie Mullins. Factually, Willie Mullins in front of camera, you couldn't hide his displeasure, perhaps, for want of a better phrase, of that scenario and how it all panned out with Paul Townend. Of course, he didn't seem too happy with the Facile Vega rider as well. So yeah, look, interesting. I'm with Blood Destiny here. I just like this horse. I think he's more the Triumph type. He looks more of a relentless galloper, 2 miles one, especially if we got a bit of rain towards the end of the week. Lossiemouth looks a bit more of a turn of foot type filly. I just wondered, she had quite a hard race there in trying to recover and get back into it. I think ground's going to play a huge part on this. If we get a real dry week, the Costa del Gloucester maintains, and we get proper spring round on the Friday, Lossiemouth's turn of foot could be key. I think Paul Townend will leave it to last minute if it's up to him to make the choice between the two. I think he will leave it to last minute, see what the ground is. Yeah, Blood Destiny. Of course, he galloped his rivals senseless. So he had Nuzret 20 lengths behind him, didn't he, last time out? That's come out and won the Adonis. So absolutely no hope for the English challenge on the strictest line of form there. Yeah, I think it's between those two. Comfort Zone, again, that scriptwriter form's kind of let that form down to a large extent, albeit I don't think scriptwriter probably gave his running. But I'm with Blood Destiny in Stephen, in short.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting one, I mean, I quite like Comfort Zone. I wouldn't dismiss him. I'm a bit devastated he's not going to run in the Boodles by the look of it, because I thought that would have been a much more suitable race. I think Comfort Zone needs producing late and idles in front and could be a lot better than he's shown so far.
Right.
I mean, obviously, as you say, that scriptwriter form looks weaker now. Scriptwriter ran abysmally last weekend. Incidentally, before that race last weekend, Milton Harris, who's no mug. He's had a really good season. Had £1,000 each way on scriptwriter for the Triumph Hurdle. Obviously, then scriptwriter bombed out and ran diabolically. And he's now any price, probably got no chance at all, judged on that evidence last time. So that was disappointing. But no, I think Ireland will dominate here. I just prefer Lossiemouth over Blood Destiny. But this is a really good, high quality renewal of the Triumph.
Yeah, sure is, and the opinion is divided on the panel. Well, the Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle, of course, a thorough test of stamina over 3 miles on the new course for these novice hurdlers. Look, good luck, Stephen, is all I could say. Is there's all kinds of strange form lines here, horses beating each other. No real standout performer. With the flip side being, you're going to get good value on whatever you back to win here. I mean, Corbett's Cross 7-2, Embassy Gardens 5s, Hermes Allen very unlikely to run. Hidden Valley Lake, who's been the favourite for most of the season until the copybook was blotted last time out at 8-1. Sandal Glane 8s, 3-car Bragg 8s, and then we're into bigger prices. Do you have a strong view on this one?
No, I think this is a no bet race. I don't like this race full stop, to be honest with you. I think
Okay.
it's been something that bookmakers benefit over the years. There's loads of different Irish form lines intertwined, and it's an extremely hard race to assess. Most of the form's been on testing ground, and it's likely to be nearly good ground by this stage of the meeting, I would have thought. So that's another imponderable. I've selected Hidden Valley Lake. I think you can make excuses for that defeat at 13-8 on last time out. I don't think Rachel set a strong enough pace, didn't jump fluently enough, and then just got rather tapped when the winner went by. I wouldn't hold that against Hidden Valley Lake too much. A proper test of stamina, probably what is required. Henry de Bromhead has had a fairly disappointing season in the main, but he has had a couple of winners in the last 14 days. We're a week away, aren't we, from Cheltenham now? A week and a bit. So things are looking a bit better. This, for me, is an absolute no-bet race. A race to watch, although it has to be said, when you don't fancy anything, you say it's a race to watch, but it's not a race that's worked out particularly well over the years. It's left a mark on horses, and they often haven't gone on to do a lot afterwards. And as I say, it has been something of a bookmaker's benefit. Have you got a dark one? I mean, Corbett's Cross has been a real springer in the market in the last week. I see Bet365 is 7-2. I mean, he was a double figure price not that long ago. He has really shortened up. So that has to be interesting.
Yeah, a lot of confidence behind Corbett's Cross. I agree with you generally. I think this is a real muddling affair. Sandor Clegane, it's a horse I'm pretty keen on all season. I thought he ran a pretty good race in defeat last time. I was a bit keen at the Dublin Racing Festival. I'm hoping they go a good gallop and he will settle. If he does, I think there is more to come from this individual. So he'd be a tentative selection. And I know you're going to laugh, but if, just on the assumption we got softer, heavy ground, I wouldn't rule out Nigel Twiston-Davies's horse. We've all been caught. I'm not saying he's going to win it, but bouncing back at a huge price. I think he's 40, 50 to 1 or somewhere like that, or 25's non-runner, no bet. But he must have soft ground. He obviously he saw off the horse of Sid Hosey's Rock My Way on soft ground at Cheltenham. That horse came out and won the Ballymore trial. And then, of course, we've all been caught. Went to Ireland for the Dublin Racing Festival. I mean, he was beaten before they turned into the home straight. To me, it was so bad, it wasn't believable. If he kind of run around and been beaten into 5th or 6th and given his true running, I think there'd have been a lot of kind of glum faces saying, well, that's as good as he is. Listening to Sam Twiston-Davies, he said he was sat there eating his cheeseburger and weeping into his pint. I think they're all just a bit dejected after that run at Dublin Racing Festival. But he is the out-and-out mudlark in there. As you say, this race has caused quite a few upsets in the past. So that is on the weather watch list rather than anything of any real confidence. But yeah, Sandor Clegane for me, tentatively. Stephen splinters in his backside. He very much is fence sitting for this one. Well, it is the big one, the blue ribbon, the Cheltenham Gold Cup, coming under the forensic glare of Stephen Harris. Now, Stephen, Galloping de Champs, of course, horse so much class and charisma. He is your 11-8 market leader. Brave Man's Game, the King George winner, 13-2. A Plus Tard, if you rewind to just under a year ago, was probably one of the most impressive visually Cheltenham Gold Cup winners I can remember for yesteryear. Blew away the field by 15 lengths in this renewal 12 months ago. We then got Statler, the National Hunt Chase winner from last year's Cheltenham Festival, at 8s. Noble Yates, the Grand National winner, at 8s. Conflated, the Savills Chase winner, Grey One winner in Ireland, at 10s. Protectorat, of course, bolted up at Haydock by half the track earlier in the season at 12s. Shishkin, unlikely runner. And then we're into Ahoy Signor at 12s. And previous champion Manila Indo 20s. and the rest bar. I suppose we've got to start with Galopin de Champs, Stephen. 11-8. In many ways, we discussed this before, didn't we? He confused me last time out in the sense of been
Mm.
so used to Galopin de Champs being brilliant and just annihilating everything. Well, there was something a little bit underwhelming about him, in my view, at the Dublin Race Festival. I can't really put my finger on it yet. When you look back at the form book, he's won an Irish Gold Cup by nearly 9 lengths. So maybe I'm getting
Yeah.
as churlish and as cynical as you as I'm getting older. But I mean, look, one thing he did do there, he confirmed he stayed 3 miles. I mean, he was not stopping at the end. I suppose question mark could be 3 1/4. But how do you sum up Galopin de Champs?
Well, exactly as you did, really. After and during that race in Ireland last time out, which was the first time he's been properly tested at the 3 miles, I thought he was beaten. I don't think he jumped
Mm,
that well. There was a brief period of about 100 yards when Fury Road looked to have them all in a bit of trouble, and then
yeah.
Fury Road absolutely stopped, which was how
Well, made
and
a mess
hung
of the
over to
last.
the
Yeah.
far side and
Yeah.
disappeared and stopped.
Yeah.
So that made Gallopin look. If you only watched from the last, as a lot of people must have done, from what I've heard them commenting on it, it was sensational performance. He's absolutely bolted up. Well, in running, I thought he was in trouble, and I wasn't particularly taken with it. Now, there was a chance before that race in Ireland that he was the next Cato star, the next Denman. He was the next
Mm,
superstar of the sport. And I think the only question that got probably answered there, again, one could have egg on one's face after the Gold Cup, but I don't think he is the next second coming,
okay.
the next superstar. I'm still not convinced he'll stay, particularly if we do
Right.
get some soft ground. And that was a slow run race in Ireland, and I've stuck with Statler for about the last 6 months, and I
Mm.
really like
Well,
him.
he'll
He's only
stay.
run
Yeah.
five. He'll
Yeah.
definitely stay. He goes on
Yeah.
all ground. He's a sound jumper. He's got 9 lengths to make up um, with the favourite, but one of them's 11-8, and one of them's nearly 10-1. So there's too big a price disparity between the two of them. He's still improving. He'll definitely stay. He's definitely been aimed at the race all season. He's only had 2 runs. Everything's right. He's the right age. He's at exactly the right profile, and he's a much bigger price than the favourite. The only thing I'll say about this, we do this a lot, Ed, don't we? I'd be very
Mm.
negative on horses, and then the market. When I was last negative about Gallopin, um, he was 11-8, 5-4 on the exchanges. He looked like he's now drifted right out. I believe he's bigger than 2-1, or certainly touching 2-1 on the exchanges. So that things you don't like at 5-4, one's opinion slightly wanes when they've got out to being 2-1. But that being said, I'd sooner back Statler each way. Unusually for the Gold Cup, I don't always think it's got a wonderful shape for punters, but I think it has got quite a good shape for punters, because I think there's a
Right.
lot of horses that on goodish ground are extremely
Yeah.
hard to fancy. I mean, I would doubt Noble Yates will be quick enough to lay
Yeah.
up over this trip. And I think they're going for the Grand National. He's a very, very smart horse, trained by a genius, but you'd be slightly surprised what you saw last time out, whether he'd be quick enough to win a good ground Gold Cup. A Hoisinor is an absolute million on good ground. His jumping will not be good enough. The
Right.
form's not good enough. Can't have him on my mind. Manello Indo is now 10. Sounds
Mm.
Russian, million. Few, you're then down to real, genuine 100-1 chances. So there aren't that many runners. The fly in the ointment, and I think last season, A Plus Tard was a very popular winner. I think it was like the betting expert Nap, to blow my own trumpet for a second, but he was so
No, you did.
impressive
You
in
did.
that Gold
Yeah.
Cup on goodish ground. If Henry de Bromhead can get him back,
Mm.
he is a massive runner. I mean, I wouldn't want to lay
Yeah.
8-1. I mean, my whole
No.
thought on this race is the favourite is too short if he's going to be
Mm.
sort of 5-4, 11-8. But rather than laying him, you're going to have to lay 2-1 to get him in now, which is, that's what the
Yeah.
price he is. I'd sooner back maybe Statler each way at sort of 8 or 10-1, A Plus Tard win only at maybe 8 or 10-1, and go down that route rather than laying the favourite. What do you fancy now? I mean, this is a fascinating. I don't think it's a vintage Gold Cup, by the way. I think it's a middling Gold Cup. I don't think we've got a Cato Star or a Denman or anything like that in it, but it's still a fascinating race.
Oh, it sure is. I suppose. Yeah. Galloping the Champ will be able to answer those questions. You get the feeling if there is a horse who's going to go to the Quarto Star kind of level, it probably is Galloping the Champ, as you say. We
Yes.
don't know, and you're now taking a very short price about something you
Mm.
don't know. I suppose to use your logic then, Stephen, your assumption is over the extra quarter of a mile at Cheltenham, Statler narrows the gap even more, and that puts him in the frame compared to the Dublin Racing Festival. I
Yeah.
totally get that. The two horses you haven't mentioned, pretty much, the two I'd be keen on. I think this is it always is, but I think this is a very ground dependent Gold Cup. You touched
Mm.
upon it on if we got spring ground. I think this has a huge bearing. This could knock some horses sideways, and it could bring others right into it. If we got real deep ground, I do think Protectorat is a runner for the Skeltons. I mean, he blew
Yeah.
away a Plutard in the field on soft ground at Haydock earlier in the winter. He was third in this race last year, let's not forget, on the ground, which had got too quick for him. And he still ran a
Mm.
belter as a young horse. I think, odd soft, he could run a big race. I think he's a player, whereas I think soft ground would nullify the chances of a few of these in here. Conversely, if the ground conditions do stay on the good side, I'm getting more and more confident that the King George winner is being seriously
Mm.
overlooked as an each way play here.
Yeah.
Brave
Yeah.
man's game for Paul Nicholls. I've watched that King George back again last night, such as the kind of exciting life I lead at 11 o'clock on a weekday evening, and he he was hampered all the way around, even more than I
Mm. Yeah.
first thought by a Venetia Williams horse. Name escapes me now. He was having to kind of shuffle to his left the whole time. The ground was tacky. He took a wide
Long
passage.
press. Long
Long
press.
press.
That's
Thank
it.
you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for a horse who had such supposed stamina question marks coming into it, well, he didn't show any kind of sign of stopping at the end, did he? So my view is
Yeah.
he's got just as many stamina question marks to answer as Galloping Champs does in many respects. And I know 3 miles at Kempton is not 3 1/4 at Cheltenham, but providing we don't get absolute monsoons of the Amazon arrive, because let's not forget, of course, that Brave Man's Game was pulled out at the Cheltenham Festival last year on heavy ground. Providing the ground stays decent and has got good, predominantly somewhere in the going description, I think he will jump and travel as well as anything into this race. Now, he may not have the extra turbo in the hard yards as we turn into the home straight, but I generally think there's a lot of ifs and buts horses in here, and you've got a horse in here at 7-1, non-runner, no bet, who's going to run, going to be trained to the minute for this. You know, Paul Nicholls used this as a lot of people see it as the negative, don't they? Not running in the calendar year, coming straight for the King George. Well, it worked. Nicholls has found a niche with that. It worked for him and Corto Star. I think on good ground, Brave Man's Game is a serious player. If we get a Coneygree year in deep ground, forget it. I think he's probably 50-50 to line up. So my two Vida field, all depending on Michael Fish. I'm Brave Man's Game. I'm Protector at Vida field, depending on underfoot conditions. And I'm with you. I'll balance. Just something about Galloping the Champ isn't quite adding up for me. And I totally get your angle with Statler. He's, as you say, he will stay and stay as win Gold Cups.
I think he's bound to keep his running.
Yeah.
I think, a Brave Man's Game, I remember when he won at Newton Abbot, I think it was his chasing debut, Ed, and he jumped like Arkle. I've never seen anything like it first time out. I know Newton Abbot's one thing. The King George was his value for probably 5 or 10 lengths more than the King George. The only thing is when you get in the cold light of day, when you read the form back, Royal Pagar was second, Frodon was third, Miller's Bank. I mean, it's not really got. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he's in a different parish to them. He's a stone better horse than all those horses, but it wasn't a very good King George on the day.
Okay.
The Irish horse was beaten immediately. It looked like a pretty ordinary race beforehand, and it certainly was in the end. But he could. I'm not so worried about staying. I suppose one thing with Brave Man's Game is Cheltenham. He's only run at Cheltenham once, and he was disappointing. He was disappointing. He was brushed aside by Bob Ollinger in the Ballymore, wasn't he? Well beat, fading up the hill. So is it his track? That has to be a question mark. I mean, again, I think Brave Man's Game is a bit like A Plus Tard, who could bomb out altogether and be a gone horse. But the win part of the bet, which would presumably be, I see Bet365 at 13-2 each way in an each way market. I'd guess Brave Man's Game will be 8 or 9-1 on the exchange win only, and so will A Plus Tard. I could certainly hear a case of backing them both win only, because if one of them bounces back to their best massive runner, and if Brave Man's Game is suited by 3 Mile 2 and gets his act together, he's won 6 of his 7 starts over fences. He's fresh and well, and he'll love the goodish ground. So there's lots of positives, aren't there? This is a race that will divide opinion. There'll be some people think the favourite's a certainty, and they'll want to unload onto him. But rather, you and I I'm looking for two or three others, Statler, maybe A plus Star to back and oppose him that way. I think it's a good race to have a bet in because I don't fancy any of the rags at all. I don't fancy any of them framing from sort of Ahoy Senor downwards. So you've
Right.
got 5.5, maybe 6 runners each way, and I think the favourite's too short. You're entitled to have a bet.
Absolutely. We're both taking on Gallop and Deschamps. Statler for Stephen. Brave man's game for myself. Are we brave? Or are we mad? We'll soon find out on Gold Cup Day. That is the Cheltenham Gold Cup done and dusted. Really looking forward to it.